So welcome back to East Asia Management. We are at the end of the course, week 13. We're talking about leadership across cultures. The idea of what's the difference between leadership in different cultures, specifically China and the West, things like that. So we have a PPT that we'll talk about, a few different videos. Before we get into that, I am wishing that you guys are showing your leadership in our class Facebook group. Again, it's called, if you can see right at the top of the sheet, just Facebook groups, East Asian Management. You should have your projects there. You should not only just be posting them, but getting feedback from other people. We will talk today, if you don't try to get feedback, if you are only just saying, do this, do this, do this, it's not the ideal characteristics of a leader. So please do that. And I have been talking to some of the TAs about the final evaluations. Since you guys are trying to be giving presentations, and it's important presentation that you should be thinking about, not just for class, but beyond class to other high-level companies. There's a few things you need to know. Number one, the grade for your project is much less important than the comments that you can get as to how you can improve. So you're going to be a better specialist or leader talking with organizations outside the class. So have an evaluation form. This was the evaluation form that was suggested in the first week. It's called the student requirements PPT. And it's generally asking you to focus on a few areas. So I'm going to show these areas, make sure you guys are thinking of the same things that I'm thinking of. And you guys can give me some feedback about this stuff. I think it's important for you guys, as a minimum, to be recognizing whenever somebody's talking, what is their content? What is the knowledge they're sharing? What are they teaching you? Is there something that they're really teaching, or are they just talking about something that's not really important? Next, whatever they're saying, do they have support for it, or is it just garbage? Is it just chit chat? Is it gossip? You must know the difference between good quality, reliable information and not. And so with that in mind, Jacobir, are you here? Or Ulugbeck, are you here? Can you identify what are the ways to share information? There's many sources of information. Can you describe those sources of information? And can you describe what is possibly the most reliable and the least reliable? Can you sort those, either of you, Ulugbeck or Jacobir?
As you introduced us, the Scopus and Web Science articles are most reliable articles because they always show their reference.
Good. Make sure whatever you're talking about shows the reference. If they're not really showing the reference, it's not as reliable as other things. And so, yes, please don't just misunderstand the idea. What we have here, Scopus is very good, but even better than that is the Web of Science. And the Web of Science, especially for social science, like in management, we have the SSCI or Web of Science. This is the best, but Scopus is easier to use, easier to manage, easier to identify how reliable it is. So yes, these are the best. These are examples for international business, international management. Every one of you should be aware, the Academy of Management, that alone is very reliable, very famous, and they have several journals that are good. Any one of those journals are usually good. There's the Academy of Management Annals, Academy of Management Journal, the Academy of Management Perspectives. There's several details there. In your presentations, you should have 10 different reliable sources, but is that it? What about Jono? Is that it? Is this the only thing that's valuable?
It's true that Scopius and Web of Science are most reliable, but however, also the international conferences, also reliable sources, which that conferences might go into the Scopius articles in the futures, and also the Harvard business articles can be reliable, but is kind of debatable because they don't have reliable sources.
Okay, so you are saying that these top Web of Science or Scopus, they are the most reliable because they have international expert peer reviewers before they get published. And you have identified Harvard Business Review or Forbes or Fortune, similar to The Economist. They are becoming respected and reliable, but they have a problem. There are good points and bad points of everything. The good points is they're so popular that they have many other people, the readers, that could argue with them. So they're powerful because of popularity, but the problem is they don't share the references. Make sure that you are sharing your references when you are speaking. They don't, these do. What about these at the bottom? Are those good, bad? Any ideas? Should you be using these?
Yeah, I would say they're interesting for recent information. They probably not the most reliable because they also don't really tell where they got their information from. But if you want something that's very new and very interesting, I think these are also very important to consider.
Yes, because it takes a long time to not only make this research and check this research by the peers, new information that's current is valuable because it hasn't been checked, but people are saying it, people are talking about it. So yes, check that information too. So we are talking about that. Back to this whole aspect of checking your research, your presentations. Don't only just focus on the content and the knowledge, also check what we were just talking about, the research. Is it good? Is it reliable? Are you showing new information? So having all of that would be good. And in addition to that, you might want to evaluate the delivery, not just the English, but when you are leading almost anywhere in the world, if you follow their certain characteristics. This week, we're talking about leaders. What do leaders do? We're going to review some of that stuff. One of the things the leaders do is the average uses the following format. They will start with a summary of what their main message is to grab people's attention and teach them something important. They don't usually talk saying, I'm going to talk about this later, and then this later, and this later. That index is less valuable than just catching their interest, especially since everybody's online, especially here. I'm talking to an empty classroom, just people online. You have to catch people's attention. So say something to teach the world, if not say something controversial, that's good. But start with the abstract and then the introduction, stating why it's important, why should people care, and then the background literature, what other experts are saying, so that you quantify what you're talking about, who you are, why the topic is important, and why other people should keep listening, and then go through your methods, your results, your conclusion, and make sure you respect the references. The references down here, I would say, if you make mistakes and steal other information, I'm not supposed to pass you, you should fail. So don't push me to fail you. There's very easy ways to manage that. Whatever you get from the internet, fine, use it, but say where you got it. And each slide state the author and the year it was created, basics of the reference, and then the full reference at the end. Any questions about this? Since all of you are going to be presenting soon, you should be doing this. Not just the grade. What else is more important than the grade? comments for improvement. Make sure you're giving lots of comments. Make sure what you're talking about is understood. So that is shared in the class Facebook group. Let's get on to the next slide. So leadership. Before I start showing you leadership, there are famous quotes. Yes, we can talk about famous quotes, but even with famous quotes, we should be looking at what are some articles saying. So I'm going to go through this, and then please, you students, talk to me about what are some articles saying about leadership. What can you tell me are good things that you know of about leadership? The whole idea of over 1,000 CEOs in more than 50 countries named leading diverse cultures as one of their top concerns threatening the competitive success of organizations. So this whole idea of you need to be aware of different cultures, different values to be an international leader in 2021. Respect other people's way of doing things. Donald Trump, he became very powerful. He became a great leader, but he didn't last because people found out he wasn't respecting the other ways too much. So please put that into thought. There are lots of things that people think about when they're talking about leaders. The whole idea of adequate compensation, job security, flexible work schedules, employee involvement programs. However, in the research and in surveys, and when you're talking to people about what makes a good leader, why people follow a certain people, usually none of these things are discussed at all. So if these are not usually thought of when somebody starts following somebody, when a leader is being recognized, what is it? What makes a leader? What is it that followers are attracted to the leader for? There's several different styles. I'll start by identifying it depends on the culture. In some parts of the world, this type of leader is usually better. In other parts of the world, this type of leader is better. Other parts of the world, this type of leader is better. And some people, like Donald Trump, may look at these and see different things than the people in those areas. As we see here, this autocratic style, where is that popular in the world? Where does the world usually identify as having many autocratic leaders? It's a question for you guys. Going once?
I would say in more Asian countries, or maybe like where people don't have that much or employees don't have that much freedom to act on their own will.
Right. In Asian countries, a lot of Western people say the leaders are usually autocratic. Some people call them dictators, dictatorial leaders. What is the word used in Korea? What is the word used in China, since we're focused on Chinese Korean leadership today? Do they call themselves autocrats, autocratic leaders?
Maybe have you ever called the word charisma? Charisma
is very, very important. Yes, that is critical to being a leader. But great, thank you. We need to talk about that for sure. The question was, in Asia, the leaders here, do they call themselves autocrats, autocratic leaders? What is the word in Asia that they call themselves?
They might call them as paternalistic, paternal.
Yes, father, paternalistic leaders. This idea of autocratic is viewed by people that don't understand it very well. They see it's different. They see what it looks like from outside, and from outside, it just looks like one guy controlling everybody. And you think maybe in the West, in the United States, that might be bad because everybody in the West is supposed to be respected as equal. Young children, old grandparents, they're all supposed to be equal. However, in Asia, the father is supposed to take care of the whole family with love, with care, as a good thing. And so paternalistic leadership is a better term to describe it here, versus in the West, they will say they're participative style. The leader will actually lead by example. They will get into the actual work, versus some people say in Europe, they will have more of the laissez-faire or the free rein style, where everybody is completely equal and the leader just provides the resources and the equipment, the facilities for great people to go ahead and do great things. So this is just one aspect of it, but what else? What have you guys found about leadership? Have you guys gone through some of these other articles, or do you have any other experiences you'd like to share?
Yes, well, I haven't read the articles, but I had a course about leadership before, and we learned that especially nowadays, or maybe differently, so we associate leadership a lot with men, and I think nowadays it's more popular to lead with well, we can call it female style, but with a more caring perspective, I guess. A lot of people appreciate that more. So I think there's like a slight change in ways to lead people.
So we're getting away from the men and we're focusing on women. Okay, some people say that, but just like we talked about the autocratic versus paternalistic, I think that could very easily be misunderstood.
Yeah, it's not about really the gender, but it's more about the style that people are talking.
What is the style? What is
Well,
the
I think in the past it was more dictatorial and I am the leader, you say, or you do what I say. And I think nowadays it changes to a more participant style, so that they are trying to get their employees ideas, and they just help them. I think that probably describes the more laissez-faire style. It was also a European course, so maybe that's part of it.
But yes, there is a lot of global research, not just European. There is a lot of research that's talking about that, but the interpretation of the same details that I've noticed is they're getting away from the autocratic leader that says, do this, do this, do this, do this, no questions asked. That is being replaced. That old man, that bad man style is being replaced with the relationship-focused person, not just the idea of what you're talking about is correct, but more the idea, I need to understand who you are. After I have a relationship with you, then we can work together and I can guide you. That type of leader. So having a relationship with each other where there can be flow of information both ways, but the idea, it's not just do it, no questions asked. I get involved, I have a relationship with you, and you want to grow the relationship. You are speaking to me, communicating, but I'm doing things based off of who you are, what you care about, what you value, and we're growing in a mutually beneficial way. That seems to be the newer style. Some people talk about servant leadership, or in some ways, the caring for other people quite a lot. Great, thank you for sharing. Any other ideas, any other comments about sharing aspects of leadership?
I think I can share my experience.
Okay.
Elementary school and middle school. What I understood the word of leadership was pretty more like a parental style or dictatorship style, because at the elementary school and middle school, we always choose the leader of the students, and leader of the once the students become a leader, they got some kind of privilege which they can make other students to shut up when there's too much talking in the class, and they kind of got a privilege of talking to the teachers if the leader has any complaints. But we did not have talked about what problems we have within the class. We kind of expected that leader will decide everything right, and he only had a responsibility to ask or talk to the teachers. So like other students didn't talk about it, but only the leaders talked about it, and he had a power to shut down other students. So that's what I thought about the leadership. But as time goes on, and once I moved to America for high school, I have learned that leadership is more like a person's who can motivate other students to talk and participate and make other people to work more. So my idea of leadership changed from living in Korea and moving into the USA.
So I understand what you're saying is in Korea, leadership is the ability to say, shut up. And in other countries, it's different. Oh, okay. There may be valid points to that. I would love to hear more about it, especially using probably different words. I would guess that your teacher, were they seriously just promoting the idea that I want to vote to who is the person able to get everybody else to shut up? I don't think that's what the teacher usually did they?
Well, it was a long time ago. So kind of once students become a leader, teacher told him and in front of other students that this guy can make you shut up, and if you guys don't, he will tell to me that some students didn't hear from me. I didn't hear from him. So he kind of had a power.
Okay, I think it's more related to that person who was able to get other people in trouble. The idea of the carrot and the stick. If you don't listen to this person, he has the power to get you guys in trouble. Okay. Maybe being a leader is connected to getting people to be quiet, but the same idea with different words is when a leader comes into a room, sometimes some research shows that other people notice. There's like, as I think it was UNO was saying, there's a charisma, a magnetism, a perfume that other people can smell or see or sense. Some leader came in and people start noticing this person. So that person gets people to start, the audience, the people around, start to stop talking and just start listening to that leader. So that charisma is one part of it. I think it's more the idea of having charisma, having people want to listen to you is good. Having people want to follow you is good. It's more of that than just saying, shut up. But yes, it is a good point. We should be talking about that. One of those things we will be talking about today. So let's get into these details. The idea of what are the foundations for leadership? The idea of it's influencing people, not just influence them to shut up, although that's cool. I kind of like that. But it's influencing people to direct their efforts to achieve some sort of particular goal or goals. Often, research is showing it's more mutually beneficial goals. And often, a lot of research shows that the leader is able to make the people around them see that the leader is supposed to be not that important. Increasingly, research shows that the leader is getting other people to develop things that they feel are their own things, even though it's the leader that planted that idea, that cultivated that focus on something that will develop the corporation around them. That's a little bit confusing. Yeah, sir, are you here? Can you summarize what I just said, since it is confusing?
Well, since it is confusing, I kind of didn't understand what you said. Like,
Okay, what about Thomas? Did you understand what I was talking about? The idea that a leader, more and more research shows, a leader can get people focused on developing something for that other person. And so that worker, that staff, feels like they're developing something for themselves. And yet that idea was planted by the leader. So the leader can communicate in a way to make other people want to develop things themselves for the common good. And yes, that's confusing. So
I think I can share one story from my friend related to this topic.
okay,
Yesterday I heard from my friend who just got a job in a big company in Korea. And he told me about like a new experience of a drinking culture, because like as a Korean, we always know that the people who's in the higher rank, they will give a drink, and they will kind of force the workers to drink more and more, and we lower class worker kind of accept it. But he got really shocked because the manager of the company, he said it's good during the drinking time. He said it is fine to drink, but we'll give you more award if you develop yourself during this kind of drinking time. So this is kind of, he said, this is the trend in Korea these days. So they want managers want workers to study on English or develop themselves instead of drinking.
so when the company gets together in North America, it's just inside the company most of the time, just for work. After 5 o'clock comes around, people go home, and other company employees usually are different. Professional is very different than personal most of the time in North America. However, in Korea and in China and Japan, work and personal life is usually combined. So the company employees, they work 9 to 5 or longer, and then they go for dinner together quite often a lot, and they will do a lot of drinking together a lot. So what I heard in Korea, in China, in Japan, if the company goes drinking, they're saying the new type of leader is supposed to develop things. So does that mean one leader will get down and do push-ups while they're drinking a beer?
And no, I mean, like he said to the new workers that you are fine to stay in the drinking place right now, but in the future, if you want to develop yourself, if you want to invest your time for studying something, it will be better, and I will reward you for doing that instead of drinking. That's what he said.
So don't come to the company drinking event, go to some other Taekwondo or English club or any other school class instead of the drinking gatherings?
Yeah, exactly. And he also heard from his friend, and that company also is doing this kind of trend.
Okay, that relates to a lot of the most successful companies I've worked with. They have something similar to that. The company definitely encourages, if not pushes, everyone to try to develop and learn something, take a new course, take a new certification program. And when you are taking it, try to come back every week and give a summary to your department, to your group. And instead of drinking nights on Friday, that person gets paid to go to his classes. Sometimes in other cities, sometimes in other countries, the company will pay the person to go learn. But when they come back, they should share the details with others. Good. That is a increasingly popular leadership characteristic. Good. Thank you. Any others? No? Okay, so the idea of leadership is to influence people to develop something, not just force them to do things. Leadership is widely recognized as important in the study of international management, as we saw. And related to that, again, we are in our second last week. I encourage all of you guys, if you want to take a look at this book, The Asian Management, we're using a lot of this in this class. You can see this anytime. A new book developed by a friend in Ottawa, Canada, has a great book, Management Across Cultures. There's a lot of examples here. It's not just like this book is China, Japan, and Korea focused. This is leadership and management around the world. This other example by another Canadian, the International Dimensions of Organizational Behavior. This is showing a lot of specific examples of what you really have to do in other cultures and other environments, because what you might think is good here is bad here. A great example is one Western person was working with Pakistan and gave them bonuses that in North America, personal wealth is one of the top motivators. So if you increase a worker's personal wealth, that's a good thing. It makes them work harder. In Pakistan, however, after they gave the bonus, that worker never came back. Why? Do you guys remember? We talked about it at the beginning of the semester. Any idea why, if you give somebody extra cash bonus, would they stop coming to work?
Maybe they would be offended in some other cultures.
They could be offended. Okay. For example, if you are in a taxi in some countries, like before Korea, Japan, China, some countries, the taxis or a lot of service people, they set their pay very specifically, including all considerations. And so if you pay more than that, if you give them a tip, some people will think you're insulting me, thinking I don't know how to set my own pay. And they may not want to drive you if you're insulting them by giving more money. Yes, but for the Pakistanish, that Hindu culture, they were saying that I am supposed to have one set lifestyle, and it's not really supposed to change until I die. And so if something significantly changes, I don't deserve it. I might as well give that position to somebody else. So it's not that the one person just walked away because they felt like they didn't deserve this big change in pay. They actually sent a relative that may be able to do that better job to replace them. So this book talks about many different examples like that. Really, really interesting examples. If you want to ask questions, I'd like to get into that. There's several other books. Even the very, very popular book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders. This is translated in Korean if you guys are interested in those details. But overall, the question is not where can you get information, but what's the difference between being a manager and being a leader? So we're going to talk about that today. So as soon as I can try to get this screen back. So leadership's like beauty. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. Leader's best when people barely know he exists. He talks little and the work is done. And when everything is finished, people say that we did this ourselves. As I was saying, the leader tries to get the people to do things, to do work, to develop things that they think they are doing for themselves, by themselves, even though the leader is actually in there getting them doing. Leading by example is quite popular. Next, I'd like to point out before we go on that this comes from Lao Tzu. This is super old guy that was setting leadership styles, just like Sun Tzu in The Art of War. How are you supposed to lead? A lot of the leadership theories and practices come from China. So what is this? This is just an example of many different leaders. So I'm going to point this out. You can see this on our slide. This is slide 6. Okay. Sorry, that was a little bit loud, but you get the point. It is showing a lot of the different leaders here. You can click on this. You can review these details on your own. The first person it was showing, anybody understand who those people are?
Yeah, there are different personalities. I think the first was the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Yes.
And the second people were the researchers who found out about the mRNA, which was really important for the COVID vaccine, I think.
Okay, any idea what was special about each of them? Like, why are they selected? Any idea what's special about New Zealand? Why don't we just promote the leader of the United States previously, Donald Trump? Was he a great leader? What is special about this Prime Minister of New Zealand? Anybody know?
Because she handled the crisis very well. She closed the borders, and I think New Zealand had almost no COVID cases at some point. So she stepped up and did what she thought was right, and it worked really well.
Right. The idea of, I believe it's only 2,000 infections, maybe 26 deaths, something like that in the country. One of the things that you're going to see if you check out a lot of these leaders, a commonality is that leaders do things quite quickly. They all have to get a lot of information and manage a lot of information, but they decide quickly. Some people get the information paralysis. You know that I have to make decisions. I'm the leader of many people, so I can't make a mistake. So give me more information, give me more information. And they don't decide because they keep thinking, I need more and more and more information. But a lot of these people, they will get some information, but very quickly, they will make a very strong, smart decision backed up with references that can be incorporated in the communications to others. So yes, she definitely did that, as we're talking about. The next people, yes, they're vaccine leaders, but why is a doctor important? Or why is this researcher important? There's millions of researchers around the world. Anybody know?
I'm not sure, but maybe they worked for humanity instead of profits of the company.
Okay, that's one aspect. Good. I don't know if you can see here, but it says the mRNA partners. Most people in the world don't know what mRNA is yet. And so the solution, what makes these people sort of good leaders is they saw many people, they're doing this. But here is something new and it's better. Even though everybody keeps saying go this way, they see this is very different, but it's better. So they're promoting this. They're growing something new that it's not following the herd. Some people say, don't be a sheep. Don't follow other people blindly into the slaughterhouse to die. Look at the big picture, decide what's better, and do that regardless of what anybody else is doing. So these people did that. Everybody else is just taking an old sick virus, trying to catch it when it's sick, and then injecting it in other people that it could still kill them. These guys changed the genetics, so they're making something like an innocent map, and they're putting that into the person that can create the resistance, the immunity. Next, this idea of the next guy, he is a leader from PayPal. PayPal is not only a big famous company, but as you saw, as you were talking about, they care more about others. This guy was able to help make sure the right thing is done at the right time, not just money. Maybe it's because they're already very rich. Maybe it's because they're already very successful, but these guys were able to see when the government is helping people, they didn't charge the service fees or the taxes on those checks that are going to people that are maybe starving and dying and out of work. So that type of thing is going against the idea of most CEOs. They're trying to find how can we make most money? And he was saying, well, money is important, but taking care of community is more important. Next, this idea of a doctor in Ethiopia, he even being from a relatively poor country in Ethiopia, he was able to get many warring countries, like around Ethiopia, there's wars almost all the time, and there's a lot of corruption all the time. So a lot of people have distrust all the time. But he was able to negotiate and get most African leaders to work together to solve a big part of this coronavirus problem. And so even though almost everybody was not very trusting and friendly, he got them all to work together. So Africa, even though people were thinking it was going to be disastrous there, Africans were able to close borders and start protecting themselves much better than even Donald Trump in the United States did. So he managed an effective leadership style throughout. We can keep going over, like it goes from 5, 6, 7, 8. There's many of these people here. Even over here, the number 17, human rights in China. Somebody is going against what some leadership says you have to do it this way. And he is able to not just say that is bad, but he's able to help people, even though it's a different way than other leaders are saying. So usually, especially when we're focused on China, you should understand the leader, the president of a country, you should not argue with too much. Like Jack Ma, he's one of the world's richest men, most successful men, most respected men, but he started by snickering or laughing at the government. And because of that, his business was basically put on hold, stopped. He was supposed to have one of the most successful IPOs in the world in history, and yet China basically deleted that. They removed that because Jack Ma didn't directly insult the government, but he indirectly insulted them by basically laughing, saying they're not efficient. And so this guy knows that the government is powerful. You're not allowed to make them look bad. And yet the government is saying this, and he is able to promote a different idea that's going against them and still do well. So be aware of that. Another person like Jessica Tan, she's also the Chinese. She has a Chinese tech insurance company. Has anybody heard of Jessica Tan before? Are you aware of that technology insurance company? No. What she was doing is basically promoting information in China while the government is basically stopping information. So she was able to get information, get it approved by government, and get it out to the world really, really fast, and started promoting the idea of testing. She was able to use her success in the company to provide things while other people weren't aware of what to do or how to do it. She actually started testing many, many people around, and I believe she got over 1 billion tests done and made over $1 billion from those humanitarian, good, caring details. Another thing, for example, China, traditionally, people think they have a lot of coal-powered plants. And so when you say that is bad, you're going against a lot of leadership in China, and yet he is promoting climate change. Some of these good leaders don't have to follow blindly what other people are saying. Try to check these out, try to see what are some similarities with them, and follow in their footsteps. Any questions about these? Are you guys aware of any of these? Do you respect any more than others? Even the idea of Dolly Parton, she's not a very popular singer today, but there's many different examples here. Go through, try to learn from various examples. Surround yourself with the best people you can. So here is a video we're going to go through. And Dong, did you want to talk about this, introduce it, manage this 5-part quiz?
Yes, so I would like to introduce you with 5 questions first. So maybe at the first time you can brainstorm to give your idea, like whether, for example, question 1, what do you think about the leader? Do they smell more or less? Continue to 5 questions, finish the 5 questions list, and then put the answer in the Zoom chat, and then later we can see the answers by watching this video.
Okay.
How does it sound? Is that good?
UNO, do you understand? Can you repeat the instructions? Was that clear to you?
So we watch the video and we kind of write the answer to the chat.
We will watch the video together in class, but what she's saying is these are simple 5 questions. In the chat or in Facebook, just make a note. Question 1, what is the answer? A or B? Question 2, do you think A or B? 3, just answer these questions in the chat. Guess now, and as you're starting to go through this, we'll watch the video together and see the answers. So go ahead, everybody in class, just write down your 5 answers. 1, A or B, 2, AB, 3, AB, all the way up to 5. Is that clear? Yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you like me to wait 30 seconds or a minute before we start, or is it okay to start at the same time?
Maybe we can give everybody for like 1 minute. I think this question is very easy, so 1 minute so they can give the answers, and then after that we can watch. So we have I think everybody is getting the answers now.
Once you're finished, maybe you can just say done.
Yes.
So you have 5 people saying I'm done, then we'll start the video.
Done.
Thanks. I heard 1.
I'm also done.
2, good, thanks.
Done.
We have 3, but See if you're already. Maybe two more.
Yeah, I'm done.
One more.
Done.
Okay.
Leaders, we're happy to welcome back the author of Human Lie Detection and Body Language 101, and that's, of course, Vanessa Van Edwards. Nice to see you again.
Hi.
And the premise here is that leaders carry themselves in a different way. I guess you would have to say that they're natural leaders because this is intrinsic to them, right?
You know that we all know that person when they walk into the room. It's like they have this magnetism.
Right.
You know, everyone turns to look at them. We have that person who just is a natural born leader. And actually, the research shows that intuitively we pick up on someone's ability to lead. There was a fascinating study that actually had people look at pictures of Fortune 500 CEOs, and they could pick out, just by looking at their picture, who was the most profitable on the list.
Well, is it their body language or what they were wearing?
It's about levels of testosterone,
Okay.
How they carry themselves, how they hold their face, and then, of course, how they interact with people. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of the different cues that you can do if you want to be more powerful, if you want to be a leader, and also how to spot the leader in the room if you're not quite sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
who's
well,
sort of that.
we're sure because he wears a shirt says I'm in charge. But okay, all right.
Says
So give us
boss.
a quiz. We'll see if we
Sure.
get it.
Okay, so here's question number one for you, and I hope that people at home can play along too. 1, what do leaders do? A, smile more, or B, smile less?
Smile less.
I would think that they smile more
Oh, I would think
because
they'd
they're
smile
engaging
less.
and they're charming and they're, hey, how are they? Win you over, right?
Right, so actually leaders smile less, but it's very common that people think they smile more. So smiling is actually a subordinate behavior. So women from a young age are taught, if you're nervous, just smile.
Right.
Or if you,
yeah, and if you don't smile, someone says, "Why aren't you smiling?"
Right,
Yeah,
you don't
girls
look
are
happy.
expected- yeah,
Why
girls
don't you
are
look
always
happy?
expected to smile.
It's actually an appeasement behavior. We do
Right.
it to sort of connect with people. But actually, if you're in a room, you'll notice the boss will be the one who's not smiling, and everyone around him or her will be smiling at him or her. So it's an interesting way to notice
Interesting.
that that's actually a submissive behavior.
All right.
Really?
very
Yeah.
good.
All right. Number
It's
2.
Helen
not
1,
gonna-
Dave
Helen
0.
1. Where's okay? We'll get your number up. All right. 2.
So that aspect, can you guys first of all hear what's going on?
What do leaders do?
Pia, can you hear this okay?
We can hear it.
Okay.
I would say that they don't interrupt.
I would think they interrupt because they're busy.
So they interrupt, but what's interesting about this is that alphas.
By the way, I'm right. I got it right.
1-1. We're tied. We're tied. So this is interesting. So an alpha is the science word for leader. An alpha is an individual in the community with the highest rank. Either they have the best physical prowess or they're the smartest. And they interrupt because when they speak, people naturally quiet down. It almost happens accidentally. You know that person when they speak, it's like everyone in the room turns to look at them. They actually have a vocal power. They kind of speak from that bass tone of confidence that everyone intuitively pays attention. So yes, they do interrupt. I don't love this, so what I do if I'm talking to a leader and they interrupt me, I'll say, gosh, I can't get a word in with you. They usually don't even realize they're doing it. And so you can joke around with a leader if you have an alpha in the office or at your home. That's what you can say to sort of cue them to not interrupt
good
you as
one.
much.
Okay.
All right, number 3, what do leaders do? Hold eye contact more, or B, hold eye contact less?
Okay.
I think-
I'd say more.
I think more too. You think of like Bill Clinton, for example. People say that Bill
Yes,
Clinton
he can
made
hold
you
your
feel
eye,
like he
yeah.
was only focused on you, Monica.
So this-
but
So as we're going through this, to get you guys more involved, what do you guys think? That first question, do leaders smile more or smile less? Do you remember what the answer is?
Less.
Yes, leaders generally smile less, according to her research. Good. Next, number 2, what do leaders do more? Do they interrupt more or do they not interrupt?
Interrupt more.
Yes, they're saying, her research is saying they interrupt more. Okay, good. However, there is significant research that's also out there saying leaders generally listen, especially when you're negotiating. They will listen to the other person and then they will say their comments. So it's interesting to see that. This part, this next question, what do leaders do? Do they hold eye contact more or do they hold eye contact less? What do you think about that?
I would say that they hold eye contact more because it shows that they are not as like scared or nervous to
Okay.
talk to the person.
Good. Jungo, what about you? What do you think?
I think they will hold eye contact more so that they can make other people focus on them.
So did I hear twice now? 2 people voting for holding eye contact more? Is that what I just heard?
Yes.
Pia, do you agree, or would you like to challenge them? What do you think?
I also think they hold it more, but I've been wrong all the time before, so I don't know.
I think they hold the eye contact more because
So let's say the 3 people were saying clearly they hold eye contact more. Pia was saying, maybe I'll go to the other one. The answer she was saying is actually both. So let's listen to that. Why?
So this is a trick question. You both have been right because this is interesting. Leaders hold eye contact more when they're speaking to you, but they hold eye contact less when you're speaking to them.
Oh.
So have you ever been at a
never guessed
party and you're talking to someone and they're kind of wandering eyes, looking around?
Yeah.
So leaders
That's
don't.
you, Dave.
You're a wandering eye. Do you have a wandering eye, Dave? So what you can do, what I do, I like when people look at me in the eye when when I'm talking. I'll actually pause and I'll wait for them to look back at me, and then I'll continue speaking, or I'll touch their elbow slightly to get their attention. So you can actually do that with someone if they're not looking you in the eye, they're looking over your head.
What's the benefit of that when you're dealing with, for people in the business realm, when you're dealing with somebody and obviously they're a leader and you're trying to accomplish something, what's the value in taking a leader out of their comfort zone or their natural zone?
So most basically, eye contact breeds trust. So you always want to get a leader to look at you because they're more likely to trust you if they're holding that deep eye gaze with you as you're explaining something. So that's why it's so important to break them out of that overhead gazing, especially at parties, networking events, birthday parties. It's so annoying when people look over your shoulder. So you can definitely get that eye contact back. 4.
Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Can I get some more comments from you guys? Were you right? Were you wrong? What should you consider? You have now studied this topic of management, international management, leadership, Chinese management, Japanese management, Korean management. What are your comments about what we just heard?
maybe it's kind of different from the Asian style or the Western style thing.
Can you elaborate on that? What she's saying is a Westerner. She is a North American person that has surveyed North American people, and those North American people do things in a North American way, which is not usually the same in several other countries. Like China, for example, Korea, Japan. Are you supposed to look at somebody in the eyes? Many cultures, they say that's rude. You're supposed to be looking down a little bit. It's a sign of respect in some areas. If you're looking directly at them, that could almost be insulting, because a leader is supposed to be at a higher level than you, higher in the hierarchy, not at your level. And so you are supposed to be communicating and interacting with people just at your level of the hierarchy. If you're trying to go above that, you're going above somebody else's job, or you're dissing them, disrespecting them. Good. That whole idea of holding eye contact with some of the Westerners is good if they are talking to you. But if you are talking to them, even more so, isn't that also considered rude when you're not listening to other people? Maybe some people are saying that's a political business strategy to make sure they don't get a lot of power, so you keep the power. If somebody else is talking and everybody focuses on them, people will stop focusing on you as the leader. So if you don't give them that power and focus, you still keep some of your power. So make sure you're looking at what is the cultures, what's behind it, why are some people doing those things? Make sure you understand that aspect. The next question, can you guys guess? Do leaders pace, walk around, or do leaders stand still?
I personally didn't really know which of the answers to pick, because I feel like some nervous people just stand still because like they are really nervous, so they don't even want to move. So that would put me into the place of answering A. But at the same time, I feel that it might be because they are so confident that they do not even pace, because some people also pace when they are really nervous. So I don't really know what to pick, but I picked B in the chat.
Okay. I think what you're doing shows a sign of great thought and leadership. The idea of it depends case by case. There are a lot of leaders that do certain things according to her research. However, if we also consider not just what a leader is doing in one conference room, but what a leader is doing internationally online, when you're in YouTube, when you're talking to other people, a lot of people must use some way, some tricks, some tools to capture other people's attention, like charisma. Your charisma, sometimes it might be attracting people's attention because of your perfume, because of your attitude, because of some things that are lost in YouTube videos. And yet, if you're moving around using more body language, using more hand gestures, that will attract people back to focus on you and give you more leadership authority. So let's listen to her and consider, is she talking about only in a room, or is she also talking about how people can maintain being a leader in TV interviews or in YouTube videos?
What do leaders do? A, pace. B, stand still.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, I would say stand still.
I would think pace, because they're thinking, and the leaders often have little time for anything, so they're always in motion.
So typically, I actually thought the same thing as you, Dave, but actually Helen is right. So typically leaders stand still. They move very purposefully. Think of like a large bear, a grizzly bear. You know, bears are like the alphas of the animal kingdom. They want to conserve as much energy as possible. So leaders also tend to be the stillest in the room. They hold their shoulders back, they stand still, and they observe everyone around them, whereas subordinates are typically running around them. Think of like cartoons. You always have smaller characters running around the leader. So actually, I always say move purposely. If you're in a room and you want to show power, stand still, take a deep breath, and stand firmly planted. That actually shows power.
All right.
Wow.
All right, last one.
Before we move on to the last one here, I'd like you guys to analyze this, critically analyze this. How is she presenting details? Did she talk about online? Did she show Scopus support? Did she talk about Albert Einstein's theory says this, or Stephen Hawking says this? Did she use famous leaders or thought leaders, or Barack Obama does this? Or was she using general examples that people could relate to that is not actually shown in research?
Yeah, she was using the general example. I think that the same was, for example, when Steve Jobs was showing how the Apple MacBook is really thin, that he used an envelope and like showed that it actually can fit into it. So people actually can see how it actually is. Because if I tell someone that it is, I don't know, like 5 centimeters thick, then not really many people can imagine.
Good. Actually, there's two different things you're talking about. The idea that she is supporting herself without actually using research. She's not actually saying her references. She's describing simple examples that can support what she's talking about. And in that case, there's at least 3 or 4 characteristics that everyone, every leader, every thoughtful person should be aware of. A lot of people have affiliation bias or confirmation bias, several different biases like Dunning-Kruger bias. So if you understand that, she is using examples that are not actually from her research, but the research says something, and she grabs a popular example and supports that. So that's the affiliation bias. It's not always true. She's just finding something that's connected to her, and she's using that. or the confirmation bias, the idea of something else says the same thing, so I use that to support what I'm saying. Why am I talking about that? I'm not trying to make her look bad. I'm trying to make you guys look like and appear like and be better leaders. So whatever you're going to be studying, whatever you're going to be doing, every one of you should be developing a research specialization for your life going forward. Every one of you is going through textbooks and readings, but you may not be leading many other people yet. Maybe you don't have the experience, or you think you don't have the experience to lead others, and yet you do. You should. Use your work to develop yourself as a leader, as a specialist in your area. The more specific you can be, the better, and start doing that. Show other people what you have. When you're at the young level, try to get feedback. When you're with close friends, try to get feedback. When you're in public, getting feedback can be dangerous. It can make you look very bad. So do it now when it's not changing your career very much. And then that will check where you have mistakes or areas to upgrade. So start developing your leadership by presenting this stuff now as many times as you can for later, and reference quite a lot. It's best if you understand what is reliable, respected information, but most people in the world don't know what is really reliable, respected information. If somebody says it with confidence, a lot of people will believe them, especially if somebody says it and somebody else says, yeah, or two or three people say yes. That actually is a leadership tool. A lot of companies, they will put a survey result in the newspaper or online saying their company is leading, but that survey, it's just a marketing example that they've surveyed people that they know are going to vote for them, and those results promote them. So that survey looks like it's not associated to me, but actually it is. So be aware of those things. Try to start promoting yourselves now. Try to start having good research now. And when you're talking, never forget, other people may not know the value of what you're saying or why you're saying it. So also teach them where this information comes from. Talk about, people don't know Scopus, so you don't need to say Scopus, but you can say, this is from one of the most respected research journals in the world. They say this, and it's the same thing that we're talking about. So those will help quite a bit. Promote yourselves now. Be confident in what you're doing.
One, what do leaders do? Nod as you speak or hold their head still as they speak?
Oh, I would say hold still if they're not. I would
Is
say
this
hold
as
still.
they speak or you speak?
As they speak.
Oh, as they speak.
No, I would think that they hold their head still.
That's right. So nodding is actually like a bobblehead. The more you nod, the more subordinate you look. So leaders also hold their heads still, hold proudly. So the more powerful you want to be, still and proud. That's what I always say.
Interesting. Wow.
Well, that's a great thing to know. That's fascinating. All right, good.
So we are at the end of the class. This lady, she is part of a research group that researches body language and leadership characteristics. She also talks about use of hand gestures. So she was just saying that some leaders do not bob and move around too much. And yet she also has research that shows leaders should be using their hands a lot to attract attention. Make sure you understand the scope. Who is she saying it to? Why is she saying it? Who's she researching? Is that appropriate to the situation I'm in now? Obviously, staring at somebody in East Asia may not get the same respect that you're staring at somebody in Western countries. And the idea of moving around too much or fidgeting, moving around will make you look nervous in many places. But if you're moving around online on videos, it attracts more attention and will keep you she's showing that it will get your video going viral when almost the exact same video, if you're not moving around, will not go viral. So the idea of use hand gestures, good. Use emotional language can be good. Even small things like blue. Should you be using a blue tie, red tie, gray tie? She's saying that blue ties are best, but take a look at that. Is it the same in other countries? Some countries, certain cultures have very different meanings to the colors. So check those details. And the same thing with numbers. I think this is quite accurate. Many leaders, they know key details about their work. They don't have to know everything, but they definitely need to know key things. And so when somebody asks an important question, they have the answers ready. You guys, when you are presenting your final presentations next class or next week, try to get questions so you know how to improve, but also try to prepare for questions in advance, especially in East Asia, China, Japan, and Korea. Leaders here are generally expected to know all answers if somebody's asking questions. So with that said, we'll finish the rest of this if we can next class. Any questions about this? Going once? Twice?